So we'd like to give you just a brief introduction to who we are, what we do, very brief, and some of the sightings highlights just recently, like L124. We can celebrate her all day.
Well, thank you everyone for coming. This is always one of our favorite events, and when we see people we only see once a year, like my friend from Wyoming that I went to junior high with, I never get to talk to. Hi. So I want to talk a little bit about it. I'm Susan Berta. I don't know if Howie's introduced himself. Everyone knows Howie Garrett. And we co-founded Orchid Network, starting with the Toki Tay Foundation and the Lolita Project, focusing on her, which led to realizing we needed to educate people about her family, the Southern residents. And while we were doing that, the Southern residents started declining and became endangered, so that needed to get focused. And at that time, I was the WSU Beach Watchers Coordinator, my office at Admiralty Head Lighthouse, and realized in the fall and winter the orcas went by, which kind of disturbed my work a little bit because I have my binoculars there looking out all the time. And so I informally started what is now our whale sighting network by just calling a few volunteers who I knew wanted to go see the orcas and tell them where they were going and what direction. Then we started sending those sightings to researchers. And then email came along. That's how old-fashioned it was. I didn't even have email when we first started. And then so I started a little email list, and I would just shoot out an email when the orcas were around. And now we have over 14,000 people on our whale sighting email list, and we hit over 150,000 on our Orchid Network Facebook page, which is the place to go for whale sightings. So it's amazing how that's grown. And I remember thinking, well, maybe there's a way we can build a program around the whale sighting network and do some education, and so we can start having monthly meetings. And then we started having workshops, and then 4.5 years ago, we started the Langley Whale Center. We've got our Marine Mammal Stranding Network. And it just keeps growing and growing, and the need has grown and grown, and the interest from people wanting to learn more and learn how to help has grown. So we just keep growing with that, and we are so thankful for all the people who volunteer for us, and for our staff. Lisa Lemire Brooks is hiding around the corner, our sighting network coordinator, who sends out the wonderful sightings emails. Cindy Hansen is probably hiding further around the corner, who is our education coordinator. Sherry Devlin, see, there she is, our Langley Whale Center assistant. And Wendy Symes is at the Whale Center, keeping it open today. And then we have a Gary Heinrich, who's our Stranding Network coordinator. And we're all just running to keep up with it, and it's really just fun to see it grow, and how many people out there have volunteered for Orchid Network or the Whale Center. Quite a few. And how many are on our Sighting Network email list? Okay. And how many go to our Facebook page? Pages. So how many have seen and reported whales to us? Yay. How many have seen whales and not reported? Watching. And how many haven't seen whales? Okay, well, watch our Facebook page, and we hope that you'll get that exciting opportunity soon. And we have volunteer sign-up sheets if you aren't a volunteer and want to volunteer for one of our programs. And we always have lots of ways to keep you busy and a variety of things for you to do. And I need to move on to Howie, but one more thing I want to say is, well, first thank you to Steve Ellis, our custodian, who puts up with us every year, and a reminder that we aren't supposed to have food or drink in here. But I wanted to mention, so the last 2 years, our workshop has conflicted with the women's marches, so we changed the date this year. And we also, if you noticed, except for a couple very special guys at the beginning, we have an all-women roster this year, kind of in support of all the women's marches and the good work that wonderful women of the world do. So we are really thankful for all the wonderful women we have speaking, and also for Howie and Dana, special guys that we let. Okay, we can. Our token males. Thanks for coming.
I just wanted to add another note in thanking Steve Ellis for taking care of us here, that he is also one of the finest birding experts in the county. And on for sightings, January 10th and 11th were major days. We hadn't seen elk pod all fall or winter at all. Kind of wondering where they were. And on the 10th, early in the day, we started to get reports. Whales going south in Puget Sound. After a while, there got to be IDs somewhere off Bainbridge or Vashon. And pretty quick, there were Como and King TV choppers overhead. And the whales were very cooperative because they were kind of grouped up. It was almost a resting line, but it was very regular, and all of them in one place. And so this great long raw footage appeared on both websites of King and Como. And some experts, especially Melissa Pino from the Center for Whale Research, but several others, noticed a baby. And they didn't want to say too much too soon, but started to put the call out, and it got verified. And then when they looked really closely at that footage, what they saw was something that is so phenomenal. You won't find it anywhere else in the world. I mean, I say that, and I'm not just being a promo guy. I don't know of any place else that this could possibly happen, especially where people can watch, and a couple of TV choppers overhead. And that is that there were 2 matrilines of transients, big whales, headed south at the same time. And the footage, of course, didn't know the difference, and they got T-137s and T-36Bs and the now, not quite officially, but generally verified new baby of T-36B. And they were hugging the shore, very close to West Seattle, Alki Lighthouse, going south, while elk pod was coming north, a mere 2 miles away, hugging the shore on the Vashon side. And all this great footage came out, and it got analyzed, and all that was identified. And so then the next day, elk pod came out of Admiralty Inlet, headed up into Harrow Strait and Juan de Fuca. And the Center for Whale Research sent out a whole team of veteran researchers with their long cameras, and they're all expert photographers because that's the whole method, photo identification. And in the course of the day, we're able to encounter not just L-pod, but K-pod and J-pod. In fact, every single individual, every member of the southern residents were out there that day. That didn't actually get publicized, but they did their year's work, their year's documentation of every individual on that day. 75 individuals. No other babies, but no losses. The 2 that have been reported that are in pretty bad shape, especially J17, J35's mom, and J35 was the one whose calf died, and she she carried it around for at least 17 days in July and August. And now J17 herself is looking pretty bad. And K25, not looking too good, but the recent encounter with K's shows he's looking a little better. So, you know, there's some hope he may come through it. But that was just incredible. But there have been a lot of sort of overall changes, which you're probably aware of, but just we don't see southern residents around that much, especially in the summer. I'll show you some graphs here in just a second, but they just haven't been coming around. And of course, we know the Fraser River Chinook are severely depleted, and so the correlation is there once again. No fish, no blackfish. But they have been coming down into Puget Sound in the fall, in October, November, December, and there was that January. So we assume that they're finding chum or blackmouth salmon, the resident salmon that are in Puget Sound during those months. And there's still a bottlenose dolphin. Where did he come from and why is he here, he or she? Don't know, but has been in the deep South Puget Sound for many months. I could find someone who could tell me exactly how many months, but if Lisa wants to shout it out, I'll know.
I think the bottlenose showed up about a year ago at different times. There's 2 different females that have been ID'd. Cascadia has a great update on their website, but there was 2 known
Right, okay.
bottlenose.
2.
Miss was the first one, and then Stump is the one that we think for sure is still here.
Yep, one has a
Possibly
name.
a couple others, and Dave just updated that the common dolphins are still, there's still a few common dolphins in the South Sound.
So that's an anomaly. And that's Cascadia Research Collective, and John Kalambakidis founded and directs that outfit that we rely on for IDs of gray whales and any unusual whales other than orca, basically, in Puget Sound, including, it worked, this discovery of just a couple days ago, January 11th, also, what a day that was number 53, Little Patch, who the Cascadia Research has identified for over 20 years, almost every year coming in. But they're not usually coming in till March, late March. So it's kind of unusual to have that one there, but not only that one, but there are 2 others that came in last spring and never left. That never happens. I mean, I don't know why any of them leave, but 2 of them, completely unlike any others, stayed all summer, all fall, or at least they kept coming back. We kept getting reports. Which is Cascadia Research ID number 185 and ID number 2246, that seem to still be around. So, Debbie Stewart, master statistician, has compiled all of our sightings and come up with some interesting stats that I want to show you. We got 3,200 individual reports this year, and there has been a little bit of lumping when every report goes on Facebook and goes out to people, so that the tracks are always very clear. But some are just extremely brief and the same as others. So that's why there seems to be a decrease when actually, in fact, there was an increase in sightings, but just a statistical artifact has sort of reduced that. But you know, the big transients continue to completely outpace the southern residents in the inside waters. And I think this is interesting. 74% of the people who report, or 852 different individuals, reported just once. So in case you're thinking it's, sort of a cadre of people who are the only ones who report all the whales, no, it's anybody, everybody. It's an open club. Anybody can join just by reporting a whale. And I did want to bring this up. Dory is here. This was an opportunistic, nice photograph from Point Robinson, Vashon Island, when K-Pod was going down. K-21 came in, did a really nice close pass. This is kind of an example of what happens. A lot of them, at least, attribute this to us getting the word out, to Orca Network reports on Facebook and other alerts. And this sort of gives you a sense of by the month, and the blue lines are the transients, Big's whale. So all through the year, way more transient reports than resident reports until November and December, and that's into the inland waters, into Puget Sound. And suddenly there's lots of residents and not as many transients. And this is another compilation of the data that includes all of the Orca Network reports, plus some Pacific Whale Watch Association reports, some from NOAA, some from DFO, some gathered from wherever that are in the Center for Whale Research database. And this was compiled by another master statistician, Jane Cogan. And they're broken down color-coded by month, but you can see southern residents, not so many reports. Transients, like twice as many. Humpbacks, way more than residents. Minkies, about even with residents. That's unheard of back in the old days. There weren't that many, but when there's no residents around or it's hard to find the transients, there's usually some reliable minkies in some known places. Gray whales, quite a few reports of them. And of course that sperm whale. One sperm whale. First identified off Lummi Island and then went up near Nanaimo. And then left probably out Johnstone Strait. So those are some of the compiled sightings. And this is something Jane put together just to sort of show where. And the takeaway is everywhere. The transients can be found wherever there are people with eyes looking on the water, basically. They get around. And humpbacks, they cluster in Strait of Wanapeuca, around Souk and south of Victoria. But again, they wander. They're explorers, they're curious, they get around, and there have been feeding, and especially right down here, off Point Defiance, off Tacoma, Commencement Bay. There have been humpbacks there almost reliably. Not many, one or two, but they seem to like that spot. And gray whales, and of course, they're right here, almost, totally, except for, and that of course is going to include, for the most part, these outliers. They're here unusually right now. But also they wander around. But the first assumption is that the ones that are seen far away are generally not the regulars. They're not the ones familiar with the waters here or the feeding areas, and they probably come straggling in, somewhat stressed, maybe suffering malnutrition, can't find where the food is, and we sort of halfway expect that they may expire when they come in if they don't know where the food is. So now I just want to give you a very brief Lolita Tokite update. That's her. She's still there. She's a miracle. I mean, the story every day is she's still alive. It's just incredible. She's over 50 years old now, been in there for 48 and a half years in a concrete tank. And she just shows stamina, she shows spirit, she shows sense of humor, she's a mischief maker sometimes. She gets her exercise on her own. Her teeth are all in really good shape. She is, I guess for her, 50 is the new 20. I mean, I don't know. One of the most important things that's happened is the Lummi dedication, the resolution to bring her home. That was demonstrated by this totem, the Tokitag totem that was, of course, carved up at Lummi, north of Bellingham, and went on a tour down to California. This was in Bellingham for people to feel. And, you know, it's not just a sort of an object that you see. The totem is an event, is a phenomenon itself. And when you're near it, you feel the energy. It's hard to describe. Seems a little woo-woo, but that totem has power. That's all I can say. And when you get close and touch it, you can feel it. And this was in Miami. This was in a cyclone. Didn't matter. There were ceremonies and a lot of close familiarity with the totem. The Black Hawk singers, the days of ritual and ceremony, and then we all went to the front entrance, the sidewalk in front of the Seaquarium, and played her calls across the parking lot to her. We have no idea, of course, you know, her response, but you know, it was an attempt to reach out and to tell the Seaquarium, we're not going away. And for what is happening, it's really in terms of strategy. Our role all along has been to raise awareness she's there. It's horrible and she needs to come back. And it's a travesty and traumatic for her to have been captured and shipped all that way and to have to spend every day and every night in a concrete box and perform at the domination of the trainers. And that's part A. Part B is she can come home. There's more on the totem. This is where the totem is now. It's at the Natural History Museum in Gainesville, Florida, at the University of Florida, and there's a nice diorama there. And I'm not certain of the plans, but I think we'll see the totem here again before too long. So, part B is to show she can come home, to describe all the history, all the natural history, all the precedents, all the inferences from different lines of evidence that show why not. I mean, there are, you know, multitudes of objections and doubts and skepticism and lofty scientific statements, you know, or sounding statements that, oh, too late, you know, she can never do that. She's ruined for some reason. I don't see it. I don't see why, and we do have a really nice place for her. It's on Orcas Island. It's at the Long Live the King's hatchery, supply of salmon right there. And the tough part is a good location that is okay when we have that, and that's there. And in that vein, I'd like to invite Sandra, she was there a second ago. Please come on up. Sandra Pollard. Yeah, better go. Sandra's written 2 books now. The history of the captures. I mean, she is the historian of the orca captures of those whales, the whole operations, their fates, and all the players that successfully stopped the captures here. And that was just her first book. And her second book, A Puget Sound Whale in Captivity, is now out. She has a table over there. We'll be happy to autograph copies. It's about Toten. It's about her life from capture on and our involvement to bring her back, and the Lummies and all the other history. And it's amazing with all these simultaneous threads going on, she was able to weave it together into a flowing story. So I'd like Sandra to say a few words about her book.
Well, to save time, I'm just going to read off what I prepared last night. And first of all, I'd like to thank Susan and Howard for making their archive material available to help to write the book, and for their dedication and tenacity in sticking with the campaign to bring Lolita home. If it wasn't for them, she would probably not be such a high-profile whale, albeit for all the wrong reasons. They've kept her story alive and fought long and hard to bring her back to her natal waters in the face of considerable opposition. In the Puget Sound orca in captivity, the fight to bring Lolita home is not only Lolita's life story, but it's also their story. And the Free Lolita campaign was launched in March 1995 by Governor Lowry, former long-term Secretary of State Ralph Monroe, and Howard's brother Ken Malcolm, Center for Whale Research. And I quote, "To clean up and maintain the waters of Puget Sound as a healthy and productive environment for humans and whales, and to return Lolita to her family." When I was tidying up the files after I'd finished the book, I found a speech made by Ken Malcolm at the Daybreak Star Center at Discovery Park, Seattle, when launching the Free Lolita campaign, which had somehow slipped my notice, unfortunately, because I could have used the material in it, in which he mentions Chief Seattle's words, "All things are connected." And a paragraph in Ken's speech, which I hope he won't mind me quoting, he's not here today, really hit a chord with regard to the challenges we face now, when he said, "It is prudent for us to restore at least some of the natural symbolism and begin to put back together some of what we have torn apart. In the face of collapsing fisheries and ecosystems, and in our existing political economic atmosphere, we may have the helpless feeling that we cannot restore everything at once. But this much we now know, we cannot do nothing." And those words were spoken in 1995. And they're as relevant now as they were then, as we try to decide how best to repair the harm done and help the southern residents. And with regard to Lolita, Ken wrote, "Lolita offers the people of Washington an unprecedented opportunity to find out what is really important to her species' survival and to ours in the web of life in the Pacific Northwest. It is important that we do not stand by idly and miss our chance. We can move now toward restoring a whale to its home and family, a symbol to its rightful role, and we can begin to realistically put back together the web of life which we have torn apart." Words as profound now as they were then. And in 1999, when Howard returned to Whidbey Island following his two-year stint in Miami, eking out a meager existence while promoting the Lolita campaign, he and Susan worked on raising awareness about the environmental issues surrounding the population decline of the southern residents and the interconnectedness between orcas, salmon, and the ecosystem. And in 2001, an MSNBC documentary about the southern residents highlighted the stress of depleted salmon runs, increased boat traffic, and the effects of ingesting toxins, all of which were contributing to their decline, and made it clear that restoring salmon runs was the way forward. 20 years ago, it was the same story as now. As for Lolita, apart from Corky, a northern resident, she has outlived all other orcas held in captivity. She survived hurricanes, separation from her kith and kin, confinement in a tiny concrete tank with only Pacific right-sided dolphins for company, which constantly rake her. She has no shade from the hot Miami sun. She's heavily medicated so that she can continue to perform for the public and boost the ticket office sales. She has been the subject of numerous petitions and lawsuits, most of which have failed her. And yet her remarkable stoicism and spirit survive, rising above the loneliness and abuse she endures on a daily basis. So thank you, Susan and Howard, for your concerted efforts over almost 25 years to bring her home, and for the continuance of those efforts in tandem with the Lummi Nation, whose ancestral sister Lolita is. I hope this book will enable people to follow her long journey and yours in the ongoing fight to return her to her natal waters where she belongs.